Hey, thanks for tuning into In the Driver's Seat with ABS. This episode was filmed prior to Jay's accident, therefore it is not a topic of conversation in the episode, but Jay is doing great and thanks you for all your well wishes. We hope you enjoy this special episode and happy holidays.
All right, go ahead.
Look at this. We got the clipboard thing.
The clipboard.
What is that actually called?
Slate.
The slate?
Slate, yeah.
The chalkboard.
I'm not in the union. I don't know.
Now, being that I'm a union guy.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of In the Driver's Seat with ABS. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Jay Leno.
Oh, thank you. Yes, very special.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
We just finished our 2022 Audrain Newport Concours in MotorWeek. Four of us had a very busy week, a lot of events, and I think the event was a great success. Jay, you've been here since.
Yeah, I thought it was great too. You know, the British had a great saying back in the 30s, the right crowd with no crowding, and that's what you get here. You know, sometimes I go to Pebble and it's hours to move. Really, I mean, like the Quail is like 3.5 miles from the hotel, and it's a 2-hour drive. You're just in bumper-to-bumper traffic. I mean, that, of course, the success of the event. It's just too crowded. I mean, you literally can't get anywhere. There's maybe 3,000 or 4,000 people on the field, but there's still enough space. You can walk around the cars and talk to the owners. And, yeah, I find it, I really enjoy it. It's a fun event. And there's stuff for spouses and non-car people to do as well. Yeah. You know, there's the mansion tour and there's shopping. When you go to the car show, oh, great, thank you. You know, get rid of those people. So you're just talking to car people all the time. You know?
Yeah. So you've played an integral role in the growth and formation of this concours as the chairman, as you call yourself.
I don't call myself that, but go ahead. Yeah.
The chairman. I'm in a chair. I'm a man. I'm the chairman.
How, you know, this is our third year of putting it on. What do you think the growth has been like since
I think the growth has been terrific, especially in getting younger people here. It's not a bunch of the council of elders deciding what is right for somebody else. I mean, it's fun to come and see cars that I don't consider a collector car, not because they're not good or anything. I just didn't experience them. I didn't drive one in high school. It's moved on. I mean, I like the cars of my era, and people should like the cars of their era. So it's fun, and I learn a lot, too, when I come to these sort of young-timer events and go, you know, I never appreciated a Honda Accord. To me, it was always a car. Oh, it's a good car. Yeah, I need a second car. It's a good car. But the driving, the handling, the way they perform, it has a whole different meaning to somebody that's their first car. They learned on a car, and that's their point of reference all the time. You know?
Yeah. And I think the idea, the class that you came up with the 30 under 30 for us has been a brilliant success, and it's really cool. Especially, you know, I was driving and we were running around on Saturday, and I drove past the tour in the rain, and you know, you see Duesenbergs, you see Bugattis, you see the most spectacular cars in the world, but you also see 944s, you see M3s, you see the group of, you know, younger folks who were, you know, maybe intimidated by other car shows that are put on, but are very much welcomed here and are a part of, you know, the crowd, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit like girls scream for Frank Sinatra, and then suddenly they're screaming for Elvis Presley. And it was like, oh, hey, wait a minute. No, it just moves on. Then it goes to the Beatles, and it goes to whoever, then it goes to rap music. You know, it's like I always say, it's like rap and rock and roll. They're both music. I hate rap. I hate rock and roll. Fine, but they're both music. You listen to the one you like. Right. Don't worry about it. Right. It's like people go, I hate electric cars. I don't want. Yeah. Well, why do you hate them? So don't drive one. But if there's a young person who's perhaps not interested in mechanics and getting their hands dirty and enjoys working with the electronic features of making a car perform, well, that's fine. It's just another avenue. Don't worry about it.
Right. And Jay, that's one thing we focus on at the museum here a lot. It's not about one certain genre of cars, but all car people are car people.
Right.
And for us, the 30 under 30 is a way, obviously, to get
the young folks involved in the concours world. How do you see concours like this evolving in the future with cars like this coming into the scene?
Well, it's fun. I mean, I've lived long enough now to see cars get popular and then lose interest again. I mean, probably 15 years ago was the height of the 57 Chevy craze.
Yeah.
You know, people don't understand. GM stuck fins on the 56 Chevy because they were getting their butt kicked by Chrysler and everybody else. They said, let's put fins on it. And Ford still outsold the 57 Chevy 4 or 5 to 1.
Oh, wow.
The Ford was way, you don't see any 57 Fords around, but they were way more popular in terms of the public. But then when those became used cars, like when I was in high school, those were 10-year-old cars, and those were just what people are buying. So all those guys are just 60, 70, even 80 now. Well, to them, the pinnacle is the 57 Chevy. But to another whole generation, it doesn't mean, hey, what? It's just a big, clumsy car with drum brakes and no ABS and no power steering, you know. So, yeah, it's all what you grew up with.
Well, we've had a good time putting these on, Jay, and, you know, we've always appreciated having you around. But you mentioned earlier, you know, this event, there's a feeling of access, there's a feeling of comfort here, you're not stuffed. What you mentioned, you know, there's free events for everybody. What to you makes Audrain different from these other events?
Well, I think the focusing on the young people is interesting. You know, one thing I notice whenever I take my Countach to a car show, little kids that come over, and I always let them sit in it.
Of course, yeah. And
now I'm meeting guys in their 40s. Guys, you remember me? You let me sit in a car when I was 5, and they have a picture of them sitting in my car, and it really makes me laugh.
Yeah.
And they want a Countach because they got to sit in one. I hate going to car shows and this. Don't approach this car unless you're nude, or you know all these stupid signs. Keep back. This is a collector. No, shut up.
Yeah.
It's just a car. You know, I always let kids sit in the car, grab the wheel.
Yeah.
And it really made an impression on me when I was 9 years old. There was a guy down the street who had a 51 Jaguar, XK120. I remember I rode him, and he said, and he was some old guy, you know. So he called, you want to sit in it? Yeah, okay, let me sit in it and all this kind of stuff, you know. So one day I get a letter from a guy, and I had told this story on TV a number of times. Hey, you know that guy who let you sit in the car? He's still alive. He's still alive. I mean, he must be 110. How old can he be? Well, when I was 9, he was only 23, but I thought he was 50.
Yeah.
When you're a kid.
No, yeah.
And I went to see him. Only a few years older than me,
yeah.
and he still has a car. That's what I love
wow.
about New England. You get, you know, in California, you have a few guys with hundreds of cars. You come here and you have one guy, one car, or one man, one whatever you want to say. One person, and it's in a modest house, and they've taken care of it and cherished it. You know, this guy's 51 Jag. The house was built in like 1680. You know, the low. You know, you have to tip, you know, your head down when you go in, and it's been in his barn since those days. This guy still heats his house with wood.
Wow.
This guy was an Eagle Scout back in the 50s, and he chops wood every day to keep his house. You know, that old New England, just hilarious. And the car is still parked in the same place it was when I saw it in 1959.
Wow. That's incredible.
Wow, hilarious.
And I think, too, you know, I think for us three, we've had the unique pleasure of being able to drive a lot of these unique cars in our collection, and a lot of people ask me, and I know them too, what's your favorite car to drive? What is it like driving all these cars? And you think the best part would be driving it, but like you said, my favorite part is sharing it with people, and sharing it with the kids, because when I remember you know, when I was 6 years old, one of my best friend's dad had a 1963 Corvette convertible, and we would the three of us would sit and fit in it, and I would beg him to let me just even sit in it and drive around. And now I get to do that for kids.
It's great fun. It's great fun. It does leave an impression on you. The cars seem bigger than life when you're that age.
It's just like this blue, almost like the Viper over there, and you know, it's something I'll never forget for the rest of my life, and it's probably what has made me such a car person.
Well, it's funny you say that. In a weird way, one of our volunteers, John Oliva, has lent me his Lotus Evora for the week. He insisted I take it. I've never driven a car like that. And yesterday I'm driving through town, and all the kids are waiting for the bus. And this kid's jumping up and down looking at the car. You give him a couple revs, give him a beep, and it made his day.
Oh, yeah.
To me, it's moments like that that get kids involved with cars. Do you think, Jay, it's really that's why people are interested in automobiles for their entire life? Is it?
I think it's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, when I got a letter once from a kid, he was like 12. Dear Miss Leno, I need your help. I told all my friends you were my uncle, and on weekends we would go ride around in your Countach and all this kind of stuff. And they all called me a liar. And could you maybe pick me up someday and give me a ride to school in your Countach and drop me off so my friends would know I'm not a liar? Well, I called the kid and I said, well, first of all, you are a liar. I'm not your uncle. I said, let me speak to your parents. And I said, I think it'd be fun to be. So I went and I picked him up, and we wait until the school bus, when just as the bus come in, then the Countach comes in and the door goes up and the kid, this is Uncle A. All right, Timmy, I'll see you after school. We'll go right around. Oh, yeah, but I realized I guess this kid is in a life of crime now.
Yeah, right.
But
You're a
I
co-conspirator.
know he's like a Countach fan forever now.
Yeah.
Just based on that one
for
incident.
sure.
I know.
And
That's
it was
funny.
fun to, I mean,
it's
it was morally, it makes no sense why I'm encouraging this line.
Yeah.
But to
At least
me,
you told him.
it seemed reasonably innocent
Right.
because
That's
he was
funny.
so excited
Right.
about the car,
Well, and we got a kid who hangs around the museum who's always on a scooter. He's looking in the windows. He's always peeking in the gates at our cars. And I happened to see him at the front gate of the Breakers the other day. And off the record, I happened to slip him a ticket, so he was able to at least walk
Yeah,
around all day.
that's-
Yeah.
And to me,
That's a
it's
lasting impression.
I know, and it's like it's not hard to get
Yeah.
kids, 13, 14-year-old kids, in it for life.
Oh, yeah.
It's so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I remember seeing my first NSX, and it's like a lasting impression. It was like seeing God in the freaking flesh. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I like that drug dealer approach to getting people to some cars. Here you go, kid. It's a
Nice
free
handshake.
one.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they're hooked for life.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all about the little things.
Makes-
You know?
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Well, I think for me, growing up in a very Italian household, my dad was always really into Ferraris and everything. And when I was younger, like really young, I liked fire trucks. I loved
Right.
fire trucks, and I would beg my parents to bring me to the fire station so I could see the fire truck. And then one day, my dad came home with a scale model of a 250 GTO.
Right.
And I remember thinking, I was probably 3 or 4 years old. I'm thinking, well, this is red, and fire trucks are also red, but this looks way cooler
Brilliant.
than a fire
Right,
truck.
right.
And then I was just absolutely hooked for life. And I think
Yeah.
the three of us, we got a lot of this car and motorcycle passion from our fathers. Mm-hmm. And I remember a couple years ago at Cars and Coffee, there was this probably, 3 or 4 year old kid, and he would run around, and his mom would be chasing him all over the place, and he would come up to my Ducati 900 SS every Cars and Coffee, and he'd be like, getting his fingerprints all over. I mean, I didn't care,
Right.
but he'd get his fingerprints all over it, and he'd be like, oh my God. So one day I go, you want to sit on it? And he was like, so I picked him up and I put him on the bike, and then I started it, and he was going brum 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 brum, and I put his hand on the throttle, and he was like revving it, and that was the greatest day of his life.
And now his mama hates you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's got a
absolutely.
little. He's got a little scooter going around.
Yeah, my dad never understood why you pay more for an old car than a new car. You got a brand new car for that. What are you talking about? You got a new Cadillac. Why would you buy? Yeah. Just never got it. Never got it.
Yeah. I think a lot has changed now. I mean, kids. I think because of the internet and because of how companies are pumping out cars. I think kids 16, even 12 years old who can't drive are getting into cars more and more.
Yeah.
Jay, do you think the car culture is different now than when you were our age? Like,
Well,
how has it changed?
It's different in that when I was a kid, it was the culture. So
Right.
even people who knew nothing about cars,
Right.
because the music, 409,
Yeah.
people sang about cars,
Sure.
little GTO, all these
Yeah.
stupid songs,
Yeah.
fun, take the T-Bird away, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So they pretended to know cars when
Right.
really they didn't. I find now young people either have no interest or know everything.
Right.
It's one extreme or the other. Like
Yeah.
everything else in life now, you specialize in one particular thing. And so the people I meet that are knowledgeable, like McPherson students, boy, they know everything.
Yeah.
Or they know nothing. Because you have to understand, like when I was a kid, there was a great satisfaction. You buy a car that was broken and you got it to run So you always felt that sense of accomplishment that you could get at home.
Right.
Modern cars, you really can't fix, especially
Yeah.
on the road.
Right.
There's no open the hood and there's a big switch and,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do. You can't replace, electronic ECU unit or
Right.
whatever it is, so it's a bit discouraging, so you don't, when you start out in go-karts and lawnmowers, okay, I see how this works, that sort of seals the deal. So I see why it's either one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest difference. I mean, to me, I was in front of the DMV when I was 15 3/4, just waiting for the, for the clock
Camped out.
to turn. Now I meet kids 22. I'm going to get my license maybe next year, see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh,
To
absolutely.
them, it's like, I have to go down there and go take a test. It's too much trouble. It just strikes me as very fun.
Yeah, and I
No,
think,
it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
That,
go ahead.
that is funny too, because I think social media has a lot to do with that too. Because, when I was in high school, there was no Instagram or any of that stuff, and when you saw a unique car, it was a moment, right?
Well,
it
sure.
was like,
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm seeing this car.
Right.
But now,
It's flooded.
cars are like,
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, the only place you saw, especially a little town in New England, Andover, Massachusetts, you'd wait for the new road and track, and there would be a Cobra. The image of Carroll Shelby standing with the GT350 Mustang, the Ford Cobra, and the GT40, and he's standing like that.
Yeah.
It's burned in your mind because that was the only place I saw it, and it was in color.
yep,
Right.
You didn't.
Right.
You didn't really. In my neighborhood, anything with less than 4 doors might as well be a Ferrari. You just didn't see
yeah,
interesting something. It was the kind of thing where people go, last night a Cobra drove through the McDonald's. Oh, I missed it.
yeah, exactly.
You hang around till 10, then at 10:30
Yeah.
it drives. Oh, and you just wanted to see it because
Yeah.
you didn't see.
Right.
You had to wait to the next issue of Road and Track to see what the next year's cars are going to look like.
Yeah.
Now you just go on the internet and you see whatever you want.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, and I think it's a good point you make, Jay, because I think everything is flooded now. And we had a car here this weekend, the Dodge Charger Electric Concept.
Right.
It's gotten some slack online, but people haven't seen it in person. That thing rolled into the gathering. The lines on that car are absolutely
beautiful.
pure.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
It's a fantastic car, and I think people are seeing cars online. Like we were talking about the new M2, the new BMWs. People see them online. Okay, well, it's not my thing. You see it in person, it's a bit different. And this Charger, I think,
Right.
is a great example of that. People need to experience these things in person. They're
Yeah.
getting too used to just seeing pictures on a small cell phone screen
And
in
then
front of their
making
face.
a decision.
Making a decision, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the last
that's kind of how I think everything is now. It's like
It's
yes,
sad.
it's yes or no, and
It's
it's
sad.
quick because our attention
And
span.
people aren't
Yeah,
experiencing it; they're
that's
just
not
seeing it
good.
on a screen.
Not there.
What do you think of the electrification of the Charger?
Well, that's where it's going, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing: if you want to win the race or not,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, flathead engines were the engine to have.
Of course.
And then overhead valves came out, and then they had a separate category for flatheads because they were just that much slower.
Yeah.
So you had the fastest slow car.
Yeah.
Now you put an electric car against, a Tesla Plaid at 130,000 will blow the doors off of a Bugatti Chiron
Yep.
at $3.5–4 million.
Yep.
Then you go, okay, what do you want to win the race?
Yeah.
Or you just want to make noise? Or what do
Yeah.
you want to do? And so that's where it's going.
Yeah.
I find the absence of noise as fascinating as the noise. The idea that,
Yeah.
and you're in the next place already.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. It'll be interesting to see in the future whether noise still has the effect on people that it has. The announcing that you're coming and cops hear you
Yeah.
at a time and the whole thing.
I agree.
I think the gas car will be around here at least for another 50 years.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And who knows? Nobody can predict the future. When I was a kid, I remember a guy from Bell Telephone came to our school when I was in the 5th grade. He said, by the time you people are adults, you will never be more than 1 mile from a telephone, no matter where you go in the United States. If you're in the desert, if you're in the mountains, there'll be a phone within 1 mile. I said, that seems impossible. The idea that you would carry around all the knowledge of the world in your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't even seem.
Yeah.
Even the communicator on Star Trek
Sure.
couldn't do what an iPhone did. They couldn't predict that. It was a two-way radio and whatever else it might be, So I think if you see a breakthrough in synthetic fuel, then all bets are off.
Yeah.
I mean, the internal combustion engine now is really sophisticated, and it's really efficient.
Well, it's
and
more efficient than it's ever been.
Right, and it's really good. I mean, I remember a good example, and I hate these movies, the Fast and the Furious movies. There's a Honda Accord or Civic, whatever it is, and he races against the Dodge Charger with the supercharger sticking out of the hood. I thought, well, that's ridiculous. But no, they are getting 1,000 horsepower out of 1.5 liter now.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Okay, I just missed that,
Yes.
and I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a new world.
And well, it's interesting because these internal combustion engines are so good. These cars are just simple tools of our life. You get in the car, you push the button, and it's basically driving you down the road. And I applaud Dodge with this new electric car, this electric Charger, for bringing the fun back into it. It's an electric car, but it's not just a tool of your life.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's thrilling. And
Well,
I hope
it's a
that
sports
we
car.
continue to follow this theme as years go by.
I mean, the thing about America is we don't change our habits. We just adapt to it.
Yeah.
Smoking is bad for you. Okay, let's vape.
Vape,
Okay.
Yeah, and everyone's
No,
vaping.
that's bad. So that's what it just makes me laugh. Like, I'm not a Hummer guy. I always hated the Hummers, that rolling coal idea, big, multi-ton thing going down the road blowing smoke. And then the electric Hummer came out, and I mean, all those problems.
Yeah.
I remember driving one. I was in the desert. We were testing it, and I saw a deer, and it just moved its. It just
Wasn't
watched
afraid.
me go by.
Yeah,
It
that's
didn't run
interesting.
away.
Yeah, I didn't think
And
about
I went, because all you hear was the
Yep.
crunching of the straw or the grass under your feet or whatever it might be. And the other thing was, I'm in this Hummer, and I can hear some dirt bikes. Wait, I can't see them. But if this was a Hummer I was driving,
You wouldn't have heard him.
I wouldn't have heard of it. I was like, what's all that noise? And I went, wow. I mean, the noise is, I can't even see where these bikes are, but I can hear them.
Yeah.
And I went, maybe that's the future of a quieter world, because to us, the sound is exciting. To someone who's not a car person, it's annoying.
Yeah.
So as you grow up with speed as just speed for itself, speed is the only new sensation of the 20th century. If you put a couple of month old baby on the hood of a car and goes 70, kids laughing and smiling. You put them in a room and turn out the light, they cry. Why is that? There's some inherent fear of darkness.
Yeah.
But there's no inherent fear of speed because it's too new to be ingrained. You know what I'm saying? The idea that's why people drive to 150 miles an hour on the road.
It's exciting.
There's no fear of speed because now someone who's been in an accident or has been
Different
injured,
story.
boy, they
That's
know
different.
I'm not doing that. I broke my leg or whatever it might be. But it's not genetic. Darkness is for some reason. Why are we scared when the lights go out? I don't know, but we are.
Yeah, well, we got to eat. We got to find our food. We can't do that.
Right. But and it's the same thing with speed. So it's kind of a funny thing that way.
And going back to going to the noise thing that you were saying, when I was at Tesla, I would take on test drives.
Yeah, he's a Tesla guy, Jay.
Yeah,
I know.
he knows. Yeah.
Okay, all right,
We
just
talk
making
about-
sure we're on the same page.
And I would take people on test drives. First, this is early on. Never been in an electric car before, and this car is so quiet. This car is so quiet, and I'd be like, "Watch this." I'd turn the climate control off.
Even quieter.
Dead silent.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's you can't believe how much these little ambient noises make in an electric car too.
Right.
Especially the HVAC. But going back to different sorts of, we have the electric car, we have internal combustion engines. One of the highlights of the Audrain Concours is the bottoms auction. There were some great cars that were sold, and you happened to pick something up.
I bought the Stanley. I bought that 1912 Stanley.
Wow.
Steamer.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's steam.
That's a car we took up Mount Washington. I mean, steam ran the world from about 1810 to about 1911. And then internal combustion, and now you're going into electric. But steam really was the mode of transportation. It was quiet. I mean, if you've never been in a steam car, they're amazingly fast.
It's an experience.
There's no transmission.
Yeah.
Like a Stanley, your engine turns 357 revolutions per mile.
That's
It's
crazy,
just,
isn't it?
okay, this is 60 miles an hour. It's just chook, chook, chook. I mean, you can watch the whole thing happen. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, you can idle it down to 3 RPM. Chook, chook.
That's so
yeah.
crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it was not as efficient, but it ran trains, it ran buildings, it ran everything. So you just move into the next generation. So I think synthetic fuels, if somebody can develop a fuel that does not pollute, okay, then the internal combustion engine is probably here to stay. Because that's really the only problem, isn't it? I mean, it's dirty and it's expensive.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I get that idea. In a closed space, the earth, if you light a candle in a warehouse, well, you raise the temperature of that warehouse 0.00001 millionth of a degree. But if you put 7 billion candles in the warehouse, like we have now, I think that's how many cars are in the world, something like that.
Wow.
Suddenly, it's going to get hot in that warehouse because you keep adding more candles, you know. So, I mean, something's got to be done. You know, it's so funny because the car was the great savior of the American horse. New York used to have 60 tons of manure dumped in the street every day. 60 tons every day, and it was smaller then.
Model.
Yeah.
And in the summertime, like a junk man's horse or the iceman's horse would drop dead in the street, and they'd cut the reins and leave the carcass. And that rotting carcass would sit there for days until somebody dragged it away, and there was dysentery. And suddenly, the car comes along, blows a little puff of blue smoke in your face. Well, that's better than manure.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seemed like, oh, I could live with this.
Yeah.
But now there's just way too much blue smoke. You know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and steam. New York City is still run by steam, pretty much. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's still around, obviously, and it's interesting. I like steam. I find it fascinating, but you just need too many fuels. You need water, you need gas, you need oil.
Yeah.
You know, so.
What drew you to that particular car?
Well, that's the one I drove up Mount Washington.
So you have history
And
with it.
it's a replica, although it used a lot of original parts, of a car that Raymond Stanley, who was the son of the Stanley steamer guys, his father built for him to be sort of a fast race car, you know. So that's what I find interesting about it. Yeah, there's some history to the car.
I think we need like a Singer steam resto mod.
Yes,
That would be great.
Yeah, there
That'd
you
be
go.
cool.
A lot of high quality
That's
brass and
what you
whatnot.
need. Yeah, that's what you
Can we work on that? That'd be fun.
Yeah.
We'll get on that.
What would younger Jay say to Jay of today, with all your success and all your experience with all these cars and doing these incredible things?
Well, what would I say? I don't know what I would say. I never thought this would happen. I mean, I always liked anything that rolled, exploded, and made noise. You know, I worked at car dealerships when I was a kid, and that was great fun. And I always thought maybe I'd do something in the car business, be a salesman or something like that. But what would I say? I don't know what I would say, actually, because my habits haven't changed. I've always collected stuff. I never really sold cars unless I just had to, you know.
Yeah.
I've got 203 on the road now. It's a little stupid. I don't know what I would say. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I would say.
Well, it's you know, I think it's good for kids are loving cars, I think, more than ever. And for me, one of my main points, I mean, for us to be in this position, like, we're extremely blessed. We're so thankful to be able to just
have it made.
do what we love
Yeah.
every single day. What, for a kid who's 12 or 15 who wants to do something like this, what would your advice be to just get into the world? Because it's not a closed door. There's a way to get in and work with cars.
The
for
way
your
to
whole
get
life.
in is the way you get into any profession. You know, I had a friend of mine. He wanted to be a director, and I said, "Why don't you write a letter to Spielberg?" Well, he's looking at me like, "Well, all right. If you don't think he's going to read your letter, then don't."
Yeah.
You know, I hear this all the time. We can't get a union without a job. You can't get a job without being in the union. I go, that's right. It can't be done. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But, you know, the personal touch is the way to do it. Anyway, my friend, this is my friend's son, he wrote a letter to Steven Spielberg, and not like a crazy letter in crayon on a paper bag. I mean, stationary, nicely, easy to read, the whole deal. And he got a job working for Spielberg as an assistant.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was like, because Spielberg read it, went, it seems like a smart kid.
Yeah.
And he knew things. He'd seen all
Yeah.
Spielberg's movies, and he quoted some things that he liked. And, okay. Because everybody sees themselves in young people.
Yeah.
I meet it all the time, Kids come to my garage, and I give them Hot Wheels. This guy could deal with Hot Wheels, so I just, and it makes an impression on them.
Yeah.
So find, if there's someone you admire, everybody, as I said, sees themselves in someone else. There was an African-American kid the other day who was a huge fan of Donald Osborne. And he came to with his parents. He's like 9 years old, and he had a Donald Osborne bow tie, and he looked like a young Donald. And then I said, Donald, this is my new, younger, better-looking Donald Osborne. And people loved in the crowd, but the kid was so excited because Donald was his hero.
Yeah,
Prominent African-American man in the automotive business. And that's who he.
If he can sing,
he
Donald's
wants
in
to be
trouble.
Donald Osborne, and to me, we took him in. We gave him some Audrain hats and a jacket and stuff, and just a nice young man. He knew the cars, which impressed me.
Yeah.
I mean, any point in the next 10 years, if that kid's name comes up, I will know him and remember, and I will. Inquire what happened to that kid, so you just meet those people all the time. But that's really what makes it worthwhile. But when I brought him up on stage to meet Donald, the audience applauded because he was the old Donald Osborne is out. He's old. He's tired.
Over.
Let's get the new guy in here.
He's already got an
and
office
the kid,
upstairs.
people are cheering, and the kid was so happy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just fun to see a happy kid, and so that's really what makes it when those kind of things happen.
Yeah, and when I talk to kids, like this young man who I always see around the museum, to me it's not putting a tie on and just handing a resume over and give me a call back. That's why I think these Cars and Coffee events that we do and the ones around the country are so popular. It's so accessible. It allows kids to get in front of you, in front of other enthusiasts, and say, this is what I'm good at. Think about me if you need help, type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, you guys don't remember this. There used to be a TV personality, Rex Trailer, here in New England. He had a Saturday morning TV kid show, and he was a cowboy, and he rode a horse and all this kind of stuff, And I remember he had a thing: if you send $1 and a self-addressed envelope, you got a picture signed. I didn't have the $1, but I wrote away for it. And he sent me a picture. When I had him on the Tonight Show, because he befriended me, and you realize, you really make an impression on kids when you talk to them about cars and things. If it's something they're interested in, and it really does leave a lasting impression. It just makes me laugh that, I brought Rex Trailer, and I told the story of the picture because I was so impressed that a kid would write a letter that somebody would answer.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yep.
At the end of the day, I guess we're all just car people, right?
Is it the end of the day already? Well, thank you.
But,
Good night. Good to see you all.
and I think that's what it comes down to is you go to these events, you have someone like Jay Leno who's ultra
I think
successful.
whatever you're interested in, to meet other people who are also, it validates what you think.
Yeah.
So, I think it's people think it's funny when it's car people. If it's music, no one thinks it's the least bit odd. If it's one of the other arts, if it's painting or singing, and you like this particular musical artist or paint, but with cars, people just seem generally amazed. Well, that's odd. But not really. It's just a shared interest. Anything you have something in common with people, and it's always that personal connection that makes it.
Yeah. I think it's tough that a lot of kids think that today the equation is go to high school, go to college, sit down at the desk, have a family and live your life. I mean, you can do whatever you want in this life, and it's.
But that's been the same since the last 100 years. That's always been the way.
But why not enjoy your life and do something you like?
Well, if you make your hobby your job, then it's not a job anymore.
Right.
Right.
But that's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, I meet so many young people now. I'm going to be in sports broadcasting. Okay, there are maybe 30 jobs in sports.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a few more, but I don't think you could name more than a dozen, commentators, sports guys, that made it. And it doesn't seem like a realistic goal. So to say, oh, I want to be in the car business, it takes a lot. It's the same percentage-wise of how many singers audition for American Idol and actually get on or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
So.
you look at the numbers. I mean, I used to play basketball, and you can tell that.
Yeah, that's
ended
relevant
pretty
right
quick.
there.
Yeah, it's like I learned that lesson pretty quick. But you look at the
You
amount
weren't
of kids
tall
who make
enough
it to the NBA. It's like 1 in 14 million.
Yeah, something
You
like
know,
that. Yeah,
so-
yeah.
but-
That always makes me laugh. Oh, hey, good luck.
Yeah,
with
yeah,
that.
But that's what's great with cars. I tell kids all the time, you can do this until the day you die. You can drive cars, tinker with cars, and do it. And I guess it is a unique, type of environment.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think, tying into that with the 30 under 30 class that has been created through us, those kids who are doing it have inspired other kids to do it. I mean, we had 3 separate 30 under 30 classes this year. The first year was just 1. And now there are so many kids, whether it's Coleman or Jarrett and all these kids that keep coming back to build these cars. They're inspiring other kids and other young people to get involved and start building cars and tinker. And maybe that's not necessarily what everyone else is doing because of the way cars are. And it's interesting that they're collecting or using cars that maybe like the 944 or the 914 that maybe weren't as appreciated with previous generations, but now our generation is taking a hold of it.
And
kind of
now,
like this young timer exhibit that we have here. You were joking before, it looked like the parking lot in here.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I remember the first time we did the 30 to 30, the kid who won, his parents came, and they were like, he just had this old car. We just thought it's a phase. He'll grow out of it. But he's meeting, the J.P. Morgan people and, all this kind of stuff, big time sponsors. And the parents were stunned, It's like all of a sudden, what is this? I mean, because they just, let's face it, if your dad didn't know how to use a screwdriver, chances are you don't. So the idea of kids even, like I meet kids all the time that I like the Porsche Turbo, and they pull me aside, hey, Mr. Leno, what is a turbo? Well, they don't because there's no reason for your dad to work on the car on Saturday morning because cars don't break anymore.
Yep.
Right.
They just run, and then they don't run.
Yeah.
The idea of you get under the hood and you put something on.
happening.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it doesn't exist. So it's a harder sell now, I mean, I always use the example. I have a friend of mine who collects like pre-1910 Maytag washing machine motors. Because in the old days, the motor was alongside the agitator, and it had to be attractive. So it had a lot of nickel, a lot of brass, and when you started it, it would like, and you see it. There'd be an arm that would pull the agitator in the machine, and the engine was. It's like looking at the back of a watch. It was just fascinating. And then somebody came along and said, "Let's put a white box over the whole thing." Well, there's no need to nickel it or polish the copper or any of that. It just so nobody's interested. There's no interest in washing machines because it wasn't like a watch anymore.
Yeah.
It was just a machine, and that's sort of where we are with my day. You open the hood, you could buy like the engine dress-up kit, and it would have the chrome valve covers and the chrome air cleaner, and it would say 289 or 427 or whatever it might be. You open a hood now, and there's a big sheet of plastic, and you pull that off, and then just this big kind of black lump that has wires going to it. But
that's right.
You don't get the sense that it's alive.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting with you. You have an Apple Watch on.
Yeah.
But we know you're into watches. It's the same general thing. All you got to do is tell the
this
time.
Watch, sometimes I wear the watch. Like, what time? Oh, now I have to find a light.
Give me 10
stand
minutes.
under.
Hold on.
Can you see with that luminescent? Can you see with it? And the Apple Watch just does it so well. That's an interesting analogy because the watch industry went into a huge tailspin when electric watches came out because you can't beat them for accuracy. You can't. That's it. Especially this gets it from a satellite. You don't even have to adjust it anymore.
Yeah.
So why even bother with it? So then watches became, quote, men's jewelry. Men don't wear jewelry per se, but they'll wear a watch that has some, amazing feature, and then other guy, oh, kind of wow. Oh, then it shows that you've got money because it's expensive. You're interested in mechanics because it's a mechanical watch that you have to wind, and there's a certain joy in winding a mechanical watch at bedtime. You hear that, you just hear that reassuring click as you wind it, and the spring gets tighter, and you're okay, that's enough, and and then it runs itself down again. And the fact that you are the power source for it. If it runs down, it's your fault.
Yeah.
So you become the sort of custodian of this watch
Yeah.
just to keep it going, as
Yep.
opposed to replacing a battery every 5 years. Or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
I think that relates basically to what everything we've been talking about today.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I have an Apple Watch. I have a couple other nicer watches, like the sports car, whatever
Right,
you want
right.
to call it. But the Apple Watch is such a good tool, and it's my favorite watch that I wear every day. It's kind of like you have your everyday car today,
Right.
and then you also have your sports car for the weekend, and that could be your Rolex or your
Well, that's what I
whatever it
mean.
is.
I think that's
Yeah.
why that's the great thing of the electric car. I mean, sitting on the freeway in a 426 Hemi getting 8 miles per gallon
Not
and
fun.
polluting, it seems ridiculous and expensive. Plus the idea, like California, it's $7 a gallon now for gas. And every day you see that sign, $7.
Yeah.
I mean, like that Dodge TRX, that big truck.
Yeah.
It's great. But the window sticker says it gets 12 miles per gallon.
Yep.
That's the best.
Yeah.
That's going
in
downhill with
neutral.
Yeah, and
with
you're
a
not-
hunger striker just touching it with his big toe. I mean, that's the best you're going to get is 12 miles per gallon.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I think that your Kobe or Ferrari or MG, it'll be like a recreational vehicle.
Yeah.
Like horses. There are more horses in America now than there were during the 1800s.
Yeah, they
during the
didn't go
Civil War.
away.
Yeah, I mean, they're just for recreational purposes now. And people like them for their beauty, and they take care of them as opposed to making them beasts of burden, And that's what'll happen. You'll drive your collector car to the Cars and Coffee or Bob's Big Boy on the weekend.
Yep.
And you commute during the week in your electric vehicle.
And in the middle of
and that's-
Pennsylvania, they
that's what-
still commute on horses.
And that's what I
Yeah.
say. Everyone asks me because I'm associated with the car museum and cars in general, and I have a Model 3, and they ask me, like, what do you think of it? I'm like, it's the best tool it's an incredible tool. Am I passionate about this car? Not really, but it's it's perfect for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters is it's the safest car on the road. I could put it on autopilot when there's traffic, and
Well, for new technology to succeed, it can't be equal.
Yeah.
It's got to be superior, or else why change?
right.
When the Wankel engine came out, it was lightweight, it was fast, but it used oil. You had to check the oil every second gas fill up. A few things like that, and it didn't get very good mileage. Probably 2 miles per gallon less than traditional. So they were bought by enthusiasts or fans, but it never really caught on because it wasn't better. The electric car didn't catch on. I remember having an EV1, one of the first General Motors ones, and that had an 80-mile range, which means you could go maybe 40 miles, and then you had to turn around and go home because you're not going to make it home.
Yep.
Which, and like I say, electricity is like sex. People lie about it. You don't really get that. You put your foot in it, and your 80 drops to 60. I better go home right now because I'm not going to have enough that range anxiety. Now you have Tesla and everybody else with 3, 4. I think Mercedes, a new EQS,
500, 600, yeah.
621 miles. So that's not a problem anymore. So with the electric car, it wins on economy, lack of maintenance, and power. So it wins in all categories, and that's why they're doing well.
Yeah. It's funny you say the range. When people would come into the showroom, and I would say, the cars get 350 miles on a charge. They say, oh, that's not enough. What if I want to drive to Florida? And I would say, when's the last time you went to Florida? And they would, and they would say, oh, in over the winter. And I said, how did you get there? Well, I flew.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, right.
In a giant gas guzzling
Well, it's like
bird.
people when they order a large pizza when they're not even that hungry because just in case.
yeah.
If they're
Just throwing away
stranded on an
anyway.
island, they have that extra slice just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you need to change the way people think
yeah,
about
and,
things.
but yeah, I think that's a great point.
Well, Jay, I want to thank you for coming out to the Audrain Motor
Yeah,
Week.
thanks. It's always fun. I enjoy this event. It's fun to come here to the museum, and exhibit changes so frequently that it's always something new when I
Yeah.
come.
Well, hopefully next time you're here, it's not a parking lot.
No. I mean, it's interesting to me to see what other people are interested in.
Yeah.
That's because whatever, we live in society. When I was a kid and you watched the news, you just got the news. Now people just watch the news that they want.
Yep.
So they only get one point of view, which is really limiting, So to me, I try to force myself to see what other people see in things. And sometimes I see it and sometimes I'm not interested. But at least I try to give myself the reason why does someone like this car? Oh, I see why they like this car,
Well, I think that also ties into our Motor Week as well, and how we kind of had an event and something for everyone, and kind of like this YouTube channel. We have Donald, and then we have us three stooges over here. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, like and subscribe. For those of you listening, if you want to tune into the Audrain Museum Network, you can see this video as well. As always, we have plenty of more content coming your way. We'll catch you in the next one.
Plenty of more content.
We're working on it.
We're working on it.
Plenty of more coming.
Plenty.